Hello and welcome back. Today we are continuing our USA run. Last episode we jumped into the UK's market doing some shenanigans with the prestige to lower our prestige in order to do it, and of course we got this great gem in Bengali, Pennsylvania as a result of massive migration. Now currently I'm not sure entirely the way that they want migration to work. It seems to be the case that they want to allow some discriminated migration, but it's currently way overtuned, and so we just get absolutely massive migration. We're using a migration edict to help push more pops here, but it seems like it's starting to cool down because the modifier we're getting used from unused arable land is starting to go away because they're just all coming here and working in the sub farms. We will keep it down, but we did include greener grass campaigns here. And also what's going on is we're currently involved in a little bit of a fight with Peru, Bolivia, and then also coming here you can see we are going to have a rumble with the CSA, the Confederate States of America. I think we're going to put our defensive units on the fronts here, and we will probably receive help from our current suzerain, the UK, because we are inside their market. They are very likely to help us, and so hopefully this happens. We do have the event, the Southern Declaration of Secession. A house divided cannot stand, fight for the Union, or we could fight for the CSA, but we're going to choose to fight for the Union. Notably, this is an important kind of thing in the United States, or for, well, obviously it's important, but it is important in terms of primary cultures because following procking the Civil War, so you actually do want to have a Civil War, you will get primary culture African American instead of Dixie if you follow the Reconstruction in a particular way, favoring African American pops. And what this will do is it will allow you to, incorporate African states in just 5 years. You can favor Dixie pops, and then you will keep Yankee and Dixie as your primary cultures. I think there's even a way to perfectly balance it so you get all three accepted. However, if you're accepting Yankee, you will also accept Dixie unless you go, something like ethno-state. And so functionally, Dixie doesn't really add much, but African American adds a ton in that you can incorporate African pops much easier. And so we will get ready for this, Civil War while trying to finish off Peru, Bolivia, and get them into as a protectorate of ours because they have a ton of resources. We finish up the war with Bolivia and get the Emancipation Proclamation. We shall save the Union, I think, and we will just enable slavery banned. Yeah, this is definitely the way to go. Slavery is now gone. We don't actually have to pass the law. Hoorah! And so this will be good for us. Notably, they are trying to conscript up, but conscripts are a little bit slow, and we already have all of ours raised from the war with Peru, Bolivia, and so we just need to move them on over. We notably have two armies that are pure skirmish for defense. This one is from Africa, and this one is from the USA here, and these will be helping us. We will just keep them on defend unless there is no troops there. So, for example, there's no one on this front, so we might push this front, and they will have to run into our enormous defense. Now, I'm not trying to say that, having more defense makes you a bigger man, but we do have more defense while we have the skirmish infantry. And so on defense, these guys will always be, they will never have to push, and so we will never have to endure their low offense, right? And so we will always have big stats. And you know what they say, big stats. And so also coming in here, we have our army for pushing, which is entirely comprised of armies that have high offense. We have, 30 offense on the Lancers and 35 on the mobile artillery. And so these guys will be very, very strong at pushing. And also, they will be more likely to be on offense. Now, they can be on defense, but the defense is more likely to pull from armies that are having more morale and this sort of stuff, and these guys will have more, the defensive armies will have more chance for the morale to recover, while the offensive army is pushing, and we will generally recruit generals with more defensive stats and this type of thing to these. Not that one's a poor example, but I do think one of these guys is defensive planner. Just kidding. Our defensive planner left us for the CSA. That's the truth, or it's, sometimes they leave you. Sometimes they leave you. But we will just be defending, and so it's more likely in turn that the defending armies are going to be defending, the defending armies are always defending, but it's also more likely that the attacking army is going to always be attacking. And so this seems to be what the metagame is you have, it's probably going to change up what the numbers are. You're probably not going to be able to build 100% mobile artillery, but unless they change the overall underlying mechanics, you are probably going to want to have a pushing army on one front and a defending standing army on one front. And so let's get into this war. So it's looking like this war is going to be perhaps less interesting than I imagined, because they just couldn't conscript much up in time and establish anything going. I imagine the AI gets a little bit better at this, but considering we have a standing army and already raised conscripts, we're just eviscerating them. And so they will very quickly, we got attack, we will very quickly put down this simple rebellion and enter the era of Reconstruction, in which we will favor the African Americans because we want them as primary. And so we get the Reconstructing the Nation event here. A house divided against itself cannot stand for the Union, which is going to add Reconstruction, and we are going to be on our way. Now, in order to rebuild, we are going to need to do some stuff. I believe that it de-incorporates all of our places, so we're also going to need to reincorporate all of these countries, or states rather, but notably this actual disincorporation is going to kind of benefit us on one front, and that front is kind of an amusing one. It's on the front of the immigration, because we do have colonial resettlement, which gives plus 50% migration attraction in unincorporated states, which is a pretty strong modifier, especially with the shenanigans we pulled. And so expecting to see a big flood of migration into these guys over the next few years as we attempt to reconstruct, from the East India Company, which is of course why we have Bengali, Pennsylvania, as it were. And so these flood of migrants, the plus 50% modifier here, you can see 40 migration attraction. If we just take an unpause, this is likely to kick up pretty high here. We also get filing cabinets, big nice. I said this is likely to kick up high here. I said this is likely to kick up high. Okay, well, it still is likely to kick up high here, but I guess maybe it needs a little bit of time to think. We do get, we love bureaucracy, but we love tech spread even more, and we're working our way towards property and women here. So here is an example of one of the many events, generally giving you an option to favor either African American or Dixie, and while there's going to be a ton of these events, while there is a way, if I'm not mistaken, to get both of these as primary cultures, we're just going to focus on getting African Americans, and so for all of these events, we're going to choose the one that makes the African Americans more loyalist. Now, on top of that, we do have this equality for all, which is going to make African American culture becomes a primary culture, which requires them not being discriminated against, which they, of course, currently are. They are currently discriminated against because we have racial segregation, and so they have the Anglophone, which is going to include Yankee and Dixie, and so if we get off of racial segregation, we won't be discriminated against them. Now, we are going to finish property and women, as it were, but then we are going to try and get onto cultural exclusion, which is going to allow us to complete that journal entry at some point in time, which is going to help us out a whole lot, because we will get faster incorporation here in Africa, which will be very nice for us. So we are going to go after the Congo here, and of course, as the abolitionists we are prepared to ban slavery, and that is going to be a primary demand. We are continuing, with these events, and we have gotten several of these. We're just going to, again, go with the African American one every single time, which may not be fully optimal, but will certainly save you some sanity. And now we have two kind of tracks in terms of what we are thinking about, is we are building up the military a little bit. We have a little bit in the queue. It's kind of towards the back of the queue, and we are going to be focusing on expanding our native interests in various areas by going after, Congo, and then going after Oman. That way we get native interests in several areas, which is going to help us out a little bit. And after that, we will probably be going after Mexico. Now, the point of the native interests in several areas is so that we can have more reverse sways into wars we want to get involved in, which is why we have an interest in Oceania and North India, because if plays happen here, we do want to be able to sway onto the side of Great Britain in order to get tasty stuff for assistance helping them. So we complete cultural exclusion, and with that we do get equality for all, which is fantastic. As far as laws go, I think we're going to put in public health insurance, and we're going to do it way earlier than we normally would on a run. We notably can do it with the help of the evangelicals, and it might be a little bit difficult to get through. The industrialists don't like it. We are going to lose the industrialist bonus, but this minus pollution effects from pollution I think is going to be a more important modifier moving forward, as well as +1 standard living is going to be very nice. per level, and we are going to look to ratchet it up, especially with, overall depressed SOL and decreased, we are getting a ton of migrants. Our population is exploding, but our overall, our reproduction rate is pretty low. What is this in terms of pop growth? Our birth rate minus our mortality rate. Really, the margins aren't so that good, and so we would like to improve that. And this is one of the reasons why we are going to be going, much earlier than 1.4. I think you do want to go for a health system. If we don't pass it, not the end of the world though. But we do want to try and get it in, and I think public is going to be the one to go moving forward. Have done private in the past, but we notice it's less negative effect from pollution. And if we take a look, this should be our most polluted state, and I don't think the modifiers are too nasty yet, but 4% mortality, minus 0.2 standard of living, these are non-zero, and they will trend up towards, the equilibrium 50% mortality and minus 10% migration and minus 3 SOL. So we'll try and avoid getting too bad on that front. We, of course, will be banning slavery everywhere we can in Oman here, and now there will be no slavery in Oman, which is going to be, relatively inconsequential for us. But what will be nice for us is how Oman affects, our declared interests, because it gives us a native interest in Persia, Arabia, and also Zanj, although we already had one in Zanj. And I want to emphasize, I think that in 1.5, you really want to be actively trying to expand, kind of the places you have native interests. So we're probably going to go after a Central American minor at some point here. God, that sounds bad. And then we will be going after, probably something in Colombia, this sort of thing. Maybe a little thing in Indochina, something like Selangor, getting them as a subject just for the purposes of being able to do this. But our infamy is really low, so we do need a high infamy war, and Mexico's looking pretty primed up. We have, now kind of, they have a total, Wow, that's kind of a high power projection for Mexico. It looks like the AI is favoring building armies a little bit more. 1100 power projection, and we have quite a bit less, but we might be able to cook something up. Maybe we want to recruit a little bit more troops, and so we will take a look. Can we decrease autonomy in Peru, Bolivia? No, we cannot. So we might go after Transvaal or something like this, because this is a pretty a substantive war in terms of infamy, and so this is probably going to be pretty good for us, given that we maybe are not ready for Mexico yet, given I think that they just constructed a ton of battalions on game start. And, we could maybe do it if we used less of a raised army and more conscripts. I guess we'll have a little bit of a think as to where we go now. So we had enough legitimacy to up taxes and still be in the max legitimate bracket following the election. And so what we're going to be doing is we're going to be expanding construction, which of course is what you want to do. And just important to note, if we take a look at the upkeep, our cheapest construction sector is by far in Pennsylvania that we can build. And so we want to build them here, not only because they will be cheaper for us, but also because they'll make the industries in Pennsylvania more profitable. But you can see we are paying quite a bit less as a result of being able to build them here than we would even at the next best place of Connecticut. And so this is why, the plus max level from urbanization, urban planning, modern sewage, these types of things are particularly useful because they allow you to build more in your very best states. So we'll be adding 5 construction sectors there in Pennsylvania. We also notably, we are having tremendous problems actually getting migration because of the turmoil, but we are putting in down here greener grass campaigns specifically in Alabama, because this is kind of going to be a place that we are going to want to build in the near future, although perhaps better than a greener grass campaign would actually be violent suppression. So if you can't join them, beat them. And so we will be doing that. We did choose to go after Transvaal, still recruiting up a little bit more troops before we go after Mexico here, which I think is a decent plan. We will have, kind of a standing army of 35 battalions, and then we will be able to raise a larger conscript army than they otherwise could, and so we should be in pretty good shape against Mexico here. I've been taking a closer look at this event, and it's been a little bit befuddling to me, the journal entry as we've been going through it, because I do remember it having to do with African American pops being, having low enough requirement, and so it seems to be the case that us just passing the things such that they're not discriminated in the form of cultural exclusion is enough. And so we're actually going to change our strategy here, which is we're going to start picking the ones that positively affect the Dixie pops, which is notably will help with the turmoil, as we just kind of talked about, because there's generally more Dixie pops than African American pops, and also kind of propel us towards a faster readmitting of the secessionist states, because it seems to be the case that this no longer will exclude African American. We are going to make a save here, just in case this isn't the case, but we will be trying to go, a little bit more Dixie-oriented in all of these events, just to try and get their loyalism low enough. Also, we will stop adding construction and instead look to rake back taxes a little bit. Notably, we can't deficit spend as well as normal because we're a major power, so we don't have as good a tax rate, and so this is something to keep in mind about, doing our sort of thing. And so we will be choosing Dixie with the exception of stuff that just relates to radicals from discrimination, because we have a ton of Bengali pops, and so we don't want to have radical from discrimination on these events, but now we are going to be changing up our strategy and going more with Dixie pops. We get public health insurance, and we've decided to go after Mexico here, but the public health insurance, I think we're going to immediately start improving. If we can, we cannot. We are going to see if there are any places where we don't have, or we currently don't have max tax capacity, and there are, and we will just add a few of these. They're not super pressing, so we're going to put them in the back of the queue. Not that important, but we are seeing an interesting thing happen here where our pushing army is really getting good pushes off. Our defending armies are sometimes losing on the defense. Overall, they're kind of holding, and we are slowly pushing into them while they're pushing into us, which is a little bit of an interesting dynamic. Almost all of our pushes are succeeding here, with our advancement party. So it does seem to be the case that quite soundly, our attacking army is attacking on offense, and our defensive ones are defending on defense. We have a really high offense score, which would not be possible if we had a lot of infantry in our land party, which of course just has mobile artillery and lancers at this current point in time. And so we are pushing in, looking to see if we are getting pushed in on, and it looks like they might have just stopped pushing in on us. And if they're not pushing in on us, we should be able to make some progress with this. It's probably because our front has too big an advantage, and they're not interested in pushing anymore. So this will give a bit of a reprieve for our defensive forces, which will just leave, kind of in defensive mode as we try and make a push for California here, which we have as the strategic objective rather than the capital, because if we get California, we should have kind of all the war goals. We might even have a good chunk of the war goals here. We have Nevada, so on the way through, Utah, Nevada, California, we should be able to pick this all up, and so that's why we're pushing in that direction. Of course, it's not going super well. We wish we had, maybe two of pushing armies, one army for actually pushing, one army for doing a landing. Maybe we take this army and do a little bit of sneaky on the capital, but I think what we're doing is fine, and we'll eventually win this one out. Changed my mind here. I think we will be doing a landing here, but we do get to take a look at how they are trying to push into us, and notably, a lot of their troops are exhausted and don't have very good morale after kind of what happened earlier, so I think we should be able to hold them. In fact, we're pushing them out just by defending here, and at the same time, we will look to get a naval landing in here on Veracruz, and then push into Mexico, into the capital state, which should be enough. We arrived to ban even more slavery, this time in Selangor, which will give us native interest in Indochina, allowing us to declare another interest, and we will look for another war, / maybe reduce autonomy here. It looks like they would not accept, and I'm not sure we really want to fight Peru, Bolivia, because as far as things go, they're actually pretty strong. And I'm not sure we want that heat, and we might just go after something a little bit softer and look to come after Peru, Bolivia a little bit later down the line. It doesn't look like they're getting an enormous amount of migration in the same way we are from, the pops over here. They might not have open borders. The discrimination might work properly for them. If it's asymmetric, then that is a bit unfortunate, but that's the current state of affairs. We are a little bit a ways from, readmitting the secessionist states. Again, if we fail this, we will still get African American, which is the primary important thing as one of our primary cultures. And so this one's important to remember, and we will be looking around for another war to be declaring here. So in regards to kind of our best companies thing, we are working towards being able to put in both generic steel, which requires a level 11 steel mill, as well as the Carnegie Company, which is unique to the USA, which is going to require that we research open hearth process. We're prepping that now, and also we have to already fulfill the other part, which is we need a level 11 in one of these, which we definitely have, and we have it in all of, actually I think it's a level 11 in steel, but we already have that. However, steel right now is not very productive, and so we are working on raising the productivity of the steel. One way we can do this is decreasing the number of laborers, which we do because productivity is output goods minus loud cars minus input goods divided by the total number of laborers times 52. And so we have a pretty high amount of productivity, or we are working to get a pretty high amount of productivity, but also we are greatly expanding the tooling workshops here as well as the motor industries here to create more demand for steel. We can also try exporting steel, but generally it is not a very easy product to export. We can hit a few countries with it, but for the most part it's going to be hard for us to increase the price of steel that way, which does increase the productivity. So we're working on that, and hopefully pretty soon here we will have a pretty big come up in terms of what companies we have slotted in. Currently we're using 3 generic companies. Would love to transition this to slotting out this one and this one in exchange for Carnegie and generic steel. I'm thinking it will probably be the way to go. So it looks like we're going to be having a bit of a big war, and it's going to be a big nice war. We declared on New Granada with the hopes of protectorating them, mainly because it would give us 2 interests, one up kind of in this north of South America and also in Central America, but also because eventually we do want to build the Panama Canal because, America. And to our great surprise and joy, Mexico joined, and so we will be able to return state the remaining 3. They do have quite a few guys on their side, but we have Spain coming in on our side as well. We are kind of mobilizing up and getting ready to go. We're probably going to look to land Mexico first here and have these defensive meat grinders just hold the fronts on defensive, and then just look to sink in on Mexico and then sink in on New Granada. It looks like they are a little bit shy on their mobilization so far, but I'm certain they will get some guys to the front. But even following that, we're going to be mainly relying on naval landings here with our party that is going to be coming in. And it's important to emphasize, all of your naval landings, when you're naval landing, it's 100% attacking. And so at the very landing itself, we will be benefiting from this, really unbalanced composition of mobile artillery with plus 35 offense and lancers that with plus 30% offense or plus 30 offense. And so even though we're a little bit weaker on the defense, we should be able to get in there pretty quick, take some land, and try and get enforcements on down. A little bit ago, I believe I forgot to explain kind of how we were progressing towards open hearth process. We researched it most of the way, and then what we are doing is we are finishing off the 2 tier 2 techs, which should give us instant progress towards the tier 3 tech. In that way, we are kind of getting as fast an open hearth process as possible. If we researched the tier 2 techs first and then went into open hearth, the natural spread on the tier 3 techs would have been completely random, and we would not have been guaranteed to get the tech progress from natural spread on open hearth. By doing it this way, we effectively guarantee that we are going to be getting in that direction. After that, we'll probably be going right into pump jacks and then backing off the industrial techs for a while, because we do want to make sure that we are benefiting from natural spread, but we want to get pump jacks in order to try and get standard oil up and running. And so this is kind of just quickly noting a little bit of how we are manipulating tech research / spread in order to get open hearth process not necessarily as quickly as possible, but as efficiently as possible, because we will still be benefiting from natural spread. So the combination of having a defensive and an offensive army seems to be working very well, because when they attack into the defensive army, it really is truly just like a meat grinder. They're pushing with like 15 offense with their like mono infantry armies into 35 defense, and they just get wrecked. And then their defensive armies are not particularly good at defending against these offensive armies that are all mobile artillery and lancers. They would be decent at pushing into them, but it is always our defensive armies that are catching them, not the pushing armies. And so this is going to leave them in a little bit of a, we can't let them leave, because we do want a lot of migration there. Also, migration is picking up in the south, as, you know, we have started to establish various cultural communities that is allowing, you know, a lot of pops to come in. You know, so here we have the UA and like all these different ones that are not normally here. If we take a look at the population map, not only are we basically perfectly vertical as a result of what is basically overtuned, you know, we're just gaining a lot of pops. Now, again, the strategy would be to go for Russia, and we would still be able to, you know, pull off a lot of pops, but nowhere near this amount. Also, to the end of, you know, increasing our population, we are maxing out our health system kind of as quickly as we can for this minus mortality rate, and also reduce pollution effects, or pollution effects reduction, but also the standard of living, which is going to have cascading positive effects like positive literacy. You can see this crank up is the result of not us just, you know, just randomly spiking up, but you can see it's basically a step ladder up every time we've gotten this new health institution in level, and so this is going to be particularly good to the end of being able to, you know, continue to support that. We're going to look where we have insufficient tax. We're going to put a couple smattering at the front, and then you know, a few at the back here, and look to also make sure our railway kind of situation is in good hands. We have been trying to pull this land party off, though, to do a landing here, but it just doesn't seem like it's possible, because now you can have multiple battles with per army, and we are just constantly in a battle. There's never a point where we're not in the battle, so we're just going to end up full occupying Mexico here, it looks like, and then be landing on New Granada, but this should be a relatively easy enforcement from here. Alright, right after researching baking powder, we pip open hearth process the next week from the reduced expense. We actually decided to go for steel frame buildings. This should allow us to create demand, or significantly more demand for steel, which is very much what we need, and we are going to be increasing taxes soon, kind of once we finish reintegrating the secessionist states here. But what we can do now is we can slot out these two gentlemen, say goodbye to the gentleman, everyone, and put in the Carnegie Company, which is going to hit productivity bonus, and also generic steel, which looks like it's not going to hit productivity bonus, but now there's way more steel throughput, and so now we might be able to export steel profitably. If we can't, we'll probably just stick with these two companies, knowing that we are going to work towards being able to get the steel prosperity bonus, and just kind of leave this in. Just a kind of quick note, if they do not change, there not being a malice tied to swapping out companies, we're currently trying to avoid it because we assume a malice will be in place. But having just one slot in and out, depending on whatever you're constructing, to get this 35 or 32.5 to 35% construction bonus, this is going to be what the metagame looks like, especially if you're just trying to play absolutely super tight. But for now, we're just kind of trying to pick which companies we want and leave them in. We notably might go for a tooling company instead of this wood company. I think that, you know, maybe this is probably going to be a bit higher percentage of our overall economy, such that it's going to look a little bit more attractive. And so what we will do is we will try and, while we still have that wood company in, look to expand the wood. Of course, we're going to put this gold in. But we are going to look to expand the wood and just kind of put a low-level wood everywhere, and then put it on auto-expand, knowing that, you know, in the nearish future, we might be slotting out that wood company, and so we will lose access to very nice construction bonus that we otherwise want to make good use of. And also, we probably should have been building more wood anyways, considering the level of migration we're getting, and we can pull those pops off from, you know, working in subsistence farms, and they can instead work in on the other stuff. So we're just going to come in here and set them to auto expand, and also make sure they're on sawmills. Just a little quick fixing up here, and we should be good to go. So I think we're going to conclude the episode here. You know, big things for this episode is we did the Civil War. We have not yet finished Reconstruction, but we're on our way to do that. Notably, we are not discriminating against African Americans, so at the end of Reconstruction, I believe we will be getting them as a primary culture, which is a big plus. Also, we managed to take back all of our land from Mexico, which is fantastic. It was definitely our land. It was never their land. Clearly ours. And we are looking pretty good as far as, Manifest Destiny goes. We do need to get all of Nebraska and South Dakota, but that's pretty much it. And that is, imminent. In 40 days, in a loud car outside. I guess it'll be 2 ticks here, but we almost have this, and so then we will be looking to get the rest of, Washington, Oregon, and Idaho kind of cruising into the next episode in regards to what we're going to be working on, as well as finishing Reconstruction. But for now, we've finished the Civil War, we've gotten the land back from Mexico, just a little bit of, I guess we should kind of cruise through and take a look at where things are looking in terms of globally. Our GDP is having a huge come up. We are the number 2 GDP, just behind Great Qing, passing the UK and all these guys. Definitely have a very sharp uptick. It's not quite exponential looking. It is pretty linear, and it is largely off the back of this migration being linear and giving us a lot of subsistence farms, though we do have both a lot of immigrants into Pennsylvania, as well as a really built up Pennsylvania. That's 13 million GDP here in Pennsylvania. That's nearly a quarter of our economy, so that's going pretty well. And let's just take a look at the cultures map mode, because it'll probably be pretty funny. Yeah, we have Bengali, which is India, Bengali, India, Bengali, Gujarati, India, Rajput, India, Gujarati, India, Telugu, I'm not sure, but surely India, Tamil, which is from... I think right here is where the Tamil people are. Oh, I guess we have some there, which is, more India. Hokan, I believe, is native kind of in this area. We have Tamil here, and this is kind of how things are going. The immigration is really overtuned right now, and so playing a New World country or anything with excess arable land seems like a really good shout, especially if you can get into the UK's market and siphon off all these pops. To the end of population growth, we are also, that's a loud car, and with that loud car, I bid you adieu. If you like the video, feel free to like, comment, subscribe, YouTube algo stuff, and have a good day.